So today it is Rehab Monday, and we are talking. Probably need to talk into the mic. Sorry guys, I was thinking I was doing a live video on my computer. It's Rehab Monday, and we're talking about how do you fit your rehab training into your regular workouts without disrupting your flow. And also we're going to talk about what you do for testing week in the UMS if you have an injury. Stick around.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
What's up, everybody? My name's Yanni Baumeister. To my left is Phil White, our physio, and across the table is Rad. Behind the mixer is Richie. We are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System. We turn driven people into athletes. If you want to know a little bit more about how we do that, download one of our blueprints in the description of the replay or by jumping on our website. How are we today, boys?
Great. Good. Very good.
Got a lot going on. Yeah. New week, Monday. New kitchen in the gym.
Yeah, and it's testing week here at Unity Gym and in our UMS online coaching program. So
yeah, exciting.
Big stuff.
I had an exciting weekend. I got a new surfboard for my 30th from my dad, who I finally lived his surfing dream, where he's been trying to get into me for 30 years. So
nice.
Got me a nice new board yesterday, and all high on life. It's great.
Oh, that's lovely. When was your birthday?
Well, it's coming up this week.
Okay,
so,
Jesus, I was going to say.
But my first wave, a dolphin breached just as I was about to catch the wave, and then got this killer wave at sunset at Ferry Bower and Manly.
On the new board?
Yeah, on the new board.
It's meant to be.
It's one of those moments.
It's meant to be.
It's great.
Yeah. There you go. Look out.
Yeah, excited to talk physio questions today. So there haven't been too many issues over the last week on the group. Not many people asking injury questions, which is great. I think it's a testament to the great programming here. But if you do have any specific questions, make sure to get them in the comments if you are watching live on the UMS Movement Mastermind group.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of, probably two agendas today. The first one is to talk about how to fit a rehab module into your program without disrupting the entire program, which is really important. And that came off the back of a few people asking that question last week. And second of all, because it's testing week, we also really want to cover the concept of testing and the testing protocols that we do here at Unity Gym and in the Unified Movement System online coaching if you have sustained an issue or an injury. And we had a good question from Kevin Lee, who's one of our superstar online clients, come in over the weekend. He's feeling like he's got a little bit of forearm tendinopathy, golfer's elbow or tennis elbow. Yep. It was tennis elbow, yeah. And which is referring to the outer side of the forearm as opposed to the sort of inside of the elbow. And, he wanted to know whether he should still test or throw in the towel and just focus on overcoming that issue. So first and foremost, why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, don't let injuries derail your goals.
Simple. Boom, you heard it first right here.
Yep. Yeah, there's always something that you can do. And Kevin, of course you're not doing this, what I'm about to say, but a lot of people, it's along the same vein as, I've injured my forearms, I'm going to take a break from training for a little while, and it's just not the way to go. Injuries are a part of life, it's a part of training, and Yanni was even saying last week that Charles Poliquin used to say that if you don't get tendinopathy in your forearms, you're probably not training hard enough. Whether we agree with that or not, those are the words of one of the most renowned strength coaches of the modern era. And
we also had that backed up when I spoke to a good friend of ours, Ben Pekulski, who was a IFBB pro Olympia bodybuilder. He said every time I went and did a program with Charles, which he did on multiple occasions, he came out with forearm tendinopathy and had to rehab that for a while afterwards, because Charles loved his thick grip training. Everything he did was with a thicker bar, much more demand on the gripping muscles, and the forearms just get blown out as a result.
Yeah. But the takeaway message there is not injure yourself because it's cool, but rather focus on there's just so much you can do, and with testing week especially, you can be testing your lower body really effectively there, and you don't need to be totally derailed by some elbow pain.
Well, I was actually going to say the takeaway message is go hard or go home.
No, look,
could have different opinions.
Well, my response to Kevin in the group was really simple.
Harden up, princess.
Shut up. My response was that you should still go ahead with all the lower body testing, probably without the deadlift, unless you use straps and there's no discomfort.
Yeah.
So if you can use straps and you eliminate the discomfort, and just remember, pay attention to how it feels on the first couple of reps, not once you're warmed up. This is specific to Kevin or someone with tendinopathy, because your pain threshold with an injury will tend to go up as the workout progresses, because you warm up and all of that, and you want to sort of use the gauges when you're not fully warmed up, because we want to manage that load for the injured tissue. And but go for it. Still dive in. There's heaps of assessments you can do that aren't going to, really, and this is important, make it real simple. Anything that doesn't aggravate the issue, that doesn't take you above about a 4 or 5 out of 10 on your discomfort meter, you should still do.
Yep.
Pretty
Yep,
simple.
and there are ways that you can adapt certain exercises like deadlift or carries with using straps to facilitate that. Probably worth noting on your testing that you have done that for future reference, because if you look back and you're like, wow, I really PB'd that much.
Yeah, that's right.
Straps do help, because grip is often the limiting factor. But also for squats, if you are doing low bar squats, that position can be quite painful for people with medial elbow pain. So changing that up to a high bar or a front squat to adapt that. But yeah, if there's certain exercises that you're testing and it's really uncomfortable, try and find a similar movement that's would have developed over the that mesocycle. And
there's the thing to remember, guys, is that testing it's a very nice way to see where you're at. I of course am, like this week I'm excited to see where all my lifts are at, but it also, and probably more importantly, it's used as a tool to determine what you need most for the next mesocycle. So you may not, in Kevin's case, you may not be able to really get a true maximal lift, but you can still definitely see where your weak links are and determine what you need to work on for the next mesocycle. I feel like did anyone else get the impression that we're on a lopsided boat in the replay? Yeah. We watched the Navy movie Greyhound on the weekend, and I feel like we might be on that boat. Anyway, where was I going with that? Yeah, Kevin, test away. Basically, test away.
And then for upper body, what would you recommend there? Like, just to
look, I think that for the most part, you're not going to be able to squeeze things like the pull up is probably going to be problematic, and you may just have to either eliminate certain movements and not get a full testing cycle done, or as you warm up, as I said, use that discomfort as a gauge. You really shouldn't be going over a 4 or 5, otherwise you're probably going to really make the issue worse.
Yeah.
And
I'd say go through the movements at a tolerable sort of level and play around with different hand grips. Often if it is a lateral elbow condition, then doing something like a supinated pull-up can be a bit more comfortable, or even a neutral grip. But playing around with that so you can keep the movements going, and then really getting stuck into the actual targeted forearm muscle rehab exercises, because as we know with tendinopathy, anyone who's watched this before will know that it's all about getting that sort of load right. So it's not stopping, it's not just pushing through, it's just trying to find that right level. So
yep, absolutely. All right, so you all have heard it there. If you are testing this week and you've got a little niggle or something like that, don't throw the towel in on all of the tests. You adapt the tests. Remember, there's also the third thing we haven't really spoken about here is the concept of greasing the groove in those movements and just really banking some more reps, practicing the protocols, and working through that testing, despite you not being able to go to your full true 6 rep maximum.
Yeah, I mean, look, at Unity Gym, the way that we do things here, the program at its core of what we do at Unity Gym is the same as the UMS online coaching. But the way that it's delivered is unique to the experience that we have to give to people in a group at the gym, and when we have a strict 1 hour time limit. So we have a certain way of doing things. And for example, when it comes to testing week, for our members that are new to Unity Gym, even experienced members, for the first 2 times they do a testing week, we don't actually get them to test anything. We get them just to practice the movements. So they do the 3 strength training movements that are on Monday, like everybody else is doing, but they're not testing anything. All they're doing is banking reps and getting used to volume, so that by the first time they do a testing week, they've done the movements before, they understand how to do it, and they're not learning how to do the movements. It's now, okay, let's do these things that I've practiced before and I know what to do, and I'm going to try and lift more weight. So if you're somebody that's new to testing week, if you've just finished the foundations program, like, I want to even take this moment here to say, I think we can relate what Josh Charles Dorr from the UMS Online Coaching is asking us here, where Josh is saying that he's completed the third phase of the UMS Foundations program and he's going to do testing week, but he's really confused by it and he doesn't really know what to do, and he wants to do a one-on-one coaching call for it. And to be honest, Josh, remove the confusion by not even worrying about testing. Yeah. Remove the confusion by the first time you did this. Let's simplify it and don't test anything. Just do those 3 movements and do a workout with it.
Practice the tempo. Movements. One of the big breakthroughs this morning, I was listening, and I was working on retrofitting our new kitchen, so I wasn't actually involved in the coaching, but I could hear the discussions going on the gym floor. And, there was a bunch of guys using a metronome, which is what we recommend to get the tempo right, and versus people next to them not using the metronome. And I could hear Rad over and over and over again getting involved in the tempo count for people, because it is a really big shift to actually do a proper 3-second eccentric tempo for the first time.
It feels really slow.
It feels slow. A lot of the guys are like, surely that's not 3 seconds when they had the metronome going. And you're like, yeah, that's 3 seconds. 3 seconds starts from 0.
Yeah.
So the count is 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Yeah. The rep ends.
Yeah, it's not 1, 2, 3. That's actually only a 2-second eccentric.
That's right. And so that was all these things. The first time you do it, if you're trying to truly test, the actual testing and the recording of all of the weight and all that stuff, that's something that's it's going to overload you. What we recommend here at Unity, and when we have new members come through, they don't do testing as testing for the first 2 mesocycles. What they do is they do practice. They just practice the method, they practice the protocols, they get used to using a metronome for the eccentric tempo, they get used to moving at that tempo, and 9 times out of 10 what I see as a result of that is their workouts change exponentially after their first practice, because they realize, my God, if I don't practice doing proper tempo, then I'm probably not going to be able to do it when I test next time, and they get more efficient. Their cues and their techniques get dialed in a little bit, and that's what it's really good for. Yeah. So someone like Josh doing it for the first time, his big win is going to come from just practicing.
Exactly. And there's no amount of one-on-one coaching that's not true, but if we did a one-on-one coaching session where we go into real depth explaining it, it's still probably just going to confuse you more. If you're somebody that's already looking at this and going, oh my God, I don't get it, I don't understand it. Let's learn the most important thing, which is how do you do the movements and how do you do it at the right tempo.
Yep.
So your workout for this week, you will do all the testing movements, and all you're going to do is do several sets. You might do, people in the class this morning that weren't doing the testing, that were just doing that, they said, how many sets should I do? I said, as many as you can.
Yep.
Just there's no time, there's no rest period, just take your time with it. If you get 4 sets done, great. If you get 10 sets done, great. But just do it in a pace that you can absorb it and that you get the opportunity to really not feel like you're under pressure to get anything done, but you're just taking your reps. And Phil has a really good way of talking about this as well for a beginner, where even if we say that we want you to do 10 to 12 reps, which you should be doing, Josh, you should be doing sets of about 10 to 12 reps, not 6 reps like the testing said. You just want to bank reps. And if you have to break that set into 3 sets of 3, meaning that you do 3 reps at the 3-second tempo and then you stop, pause, reset yourself for a second, maybe even re-rack the bar and then unrack it and then do another 3 reps. That's a really good thing for a beginner.
Particularly when you're learning a new skill. I think it can just be it's just so common to watch people when they go for a set of 12 that it starts at the beginning looking pretty good, and then by the end it's just so sloppy. And I know when I'm training, I kind of get lost a bit along the way, especially if you're doing the tempo. To get to 12 reps, it takes a long time, and it can be really hard to keep your concentration. So I think breaking it up and being like, okay, I'm just going to do 3 really good reps, and then another 3 really good reps, and then another 3 really good reps, another 3 really good reps. It just dials you in for that, staying in the moment instead of kind of getting a bit lost and getting sort of floppy throughout.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody's at a different stage of their journey, Josh. You've got to remember, like, the way we've written the UMS is designed so that somebody that is really experienced, that when, if they understand tempo, they understand exercise terminology and all these things, then when they hear this, they'll make sense of it and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But for somebody like you that this might be a lot of jargon that you haven't heard before and it's quite overwhelming, the big win for you is not going to be to come up with some really accurate data for testing. And you might be asking, your next question might be, how do I get results for my next program? All you'll do is the barbell version of the test that you're doing for each of the day. You don't need to know that your back squat or your front squat is stronger or weaker. You'll just do a mesocycle where you'll just work on these same movements again. And then the next time you do testing week and you ask the same questions again, you're really going to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. And if you are somebody that's confused by this, you can expect that probably for the first 3 to 4 testing weeks, it's going to be practice. And that's time really well spent. That's time really well spent to just go through several months where you're just practicing these movements and practicing them and practicing, because that is the first step to developing strength. The first step to developing strength is to understand how to do the movements properly and to understand how to read a program. And then you can start going, okay, let's manipulate the amount of weight that I'm going to lift and all these other variables.
Yeah, there's a really beautiful time is when you're getting first into this sort of stuff where you can basically do anything and you're going to get better and better and better. Getting really targeted coaching there, I think it's important for particularly getting the techniques right, but getting fancy about programming there kind of has not that big of an effect. It's more as you start to get diminishing returns from just doing turning up and doing some work as a beginner, that's when you start to get real big benefit from having that sort of really targeted programming, which the testing week is so powerful for. So while you're at the beginning, you're just learning these movements, you're going to get better if you just turn up and do it. So
you don't need to worry about all these. Whoop.
Yeah.
Well, here we go.
So,
Yana, you might need to do that. No. Phil's not aware of how it goes up. Sorry, those listening on the podcast, we've just had a little bit of too bad. That's right. Let's fix that up later. So there you go, Josh. Again, of course, post any more questions that you have about this, but hopefully that's given you some, some clarity on this.
Yeah. Just quickly on Lee's question, just to quickly answer that one, he's saying he frequently gets cramp in his upper leg. I guess he means the back of his leg. When I bend my knee back up unaided, is this compression of the hamstring, and how can I overcome this cramping? I can easily touch the ground and when bending forward, stretching the hamstrings. So basically with this one, you'll find that whenever you're doing inner range contraction, so with this one, with the hamstring, which is an extender of the hip and a flexor of the knee, basically in this position you're talking about here, where you're standing, so your hip's extended and then you're bending your knee as well, that's going to put you right into inner range, and that's a kind of classic time for cramping. So I think in terms of how you can overcome this, I loved Joachim when he was here talking about cramps, how there's 2 different types of cramps. There's a type of cramp that you can kind of bring on purposefully, and then there's the ones that just from doing this sort of inner unit contraction stuff. But then there's the other type of cramp, which is more if you are dehydrated and exhausted and whatever. And I can't remember quite what he said about the ones you can bring on. But
he said the ones that you can bring on are you treat them like a bully. If you don't think about them, they tend to go away.
Focus on them.
It's one of those things that it's just your muscles kind of trying to figure out how to work in this really different range than one would normally be in. So I think it's just the more time you do it and kind of control it and let it relax and do it again and let it relax, you'll start to get better. It's not a flexibility issue. This generally isn't a salt balance issue. It's just your body hasn't been used to being in this position, and you just got to expose it. So.
And Grace Clements is correcting you. Lee is a she.
What? Who are we talking about? Kevin Lee.
Oh, you're talking about Kevin Lee? I think she thinks you're talking about Lee Clements.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So let's move on to the key of this discussion, the key part of this discussion, which is how to fit rehab in to a training program, because we have had quite a few people pick up the rehab modules for different areas of the body. We had some pick up all of them, and there's people asking great questions about how to fit this in. And this really, really aligns with what we've been talking about already, which is, when you are in rehab or you have an issue or an injury that you need to overcome, it does not mate.
I'm just trying to get away from it.
It does not mean that you need to stop training altogether. And that's really important. It's actually really important that you don't, because you lose strength very, very quickly when you stop training the big global muscles and movement patterns. And, there is a lot going on to develop strength. There's sort of 6 different adaptations that occur. I'm not going to go through all of them, but, only one of them is the actual enlargement or change in the muscle tissues. The majority of them are happening with the brain and the central nervous system. And, that sort of stuff sort of starts to drop away fairly quickly if you don't exercise, if you don't practice. So the notion of, okay, I've got a pain in this joint, therefore I'm not going to move anything that surrounds that joint, is really, really detrimental to your overall strength and can actually cause more instability, which makes you more susceptible to reoccurring or an issue or injury reoccurring again afterwards. So we want to figure out how to encourage you, or we want you to figure out how to keep training despite your issue. And the most straightforward way to do that is to, trade out the joint that you've got an injury in with a rehab block, but everything else stays the same. And so if we go around the table and just discuss how that might look,
This is particularly answering Andy Lawson's question from the live show from Friday, asking about fitting in a rehab, fitting in shoulder rehab. And he says how often, and he says daily ? So it's I think this is a really important discussion, because sometimes people do think, I have to, like when I'm doing shoulder rehab, that's all I do and I do it every day. But, with any rehab program, the goal is to build up strength and movement. And we know with building up strength that you need, overload and then rest and overload and rest. So I really like this approach, and how it fits quite nicely into the, the UMS program is that, you just treat it as on your bent arm strength days, you're doing your shoulder stuff, and then on your squat day, don't think about it. You just do your squat workout.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah, with the shoulder rehab program as well, a lot of those movements, in fact, most of them in the earlier stages, are just activation movements. So it's a lot about reteaching the scapular stabilizers and the rotator cuff how to switch on and do their job. So you can do, when I was doing that, I was doing it 5 days a week, but then I was still doing my regular squat and deadlift workout straight after it, and then when I got strong enough, I started to do the bent arm strength workouts on the bent arm strength days, but I would still do that initial scapular stabilizer activation and rotator cuff activation stuff even on the lower body days. So we did write that shoulder conditioning program in a way that you could do it more than every day.
Yeah, just having a look at it here, it is very much about sort of like scapular and rotator cuff stuff. So I definitely like with my shoulder, when I'm programming shoulder rehab, like I'm still getting in basic sort of push and pull movements, or basically, as whatever level the person's at, and often someone's quite happy with like a neutral sort of grip, either push or pull. So I like to keep that balance in, and then with the more stabilizing exercises, you can certainly do that a bit more frequently.
Yeah, awesome. Yep.
Sounds good. Yep. And it's the same, I guess, with the lower body, with the hips. You just, if you've got a really big issue with a knee or a big issue with a hip, glute, then you trade out the leg days or the deadlift days for that hip stabilization work or that hip rehab work. And guys, no matter where you're at with your training, with your goals, with your history, with your injury, the goal is always to get back to the level that you were at as quickly as possible. So, although an injury rehab program that we create might have 5 phases or several phases, it's really important to understand that you want to find the entry point that best suits the level of compromise that you're experiencing. So it may mean that you don't have to start from phase 1 or go right through the entire program before you return to your regular training. It's about adapting and being flexible, like we spoke about last week. Every day that you turn up, you may find that, I'm feeling really good today. So you may progress to the next level of the exercises straight away. You don't want to sit and hold yourself back for long periods of time when you could have actually returned to training much quicker. Now, I'll give you a personal example of this. you know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, I did some damage to my right elbow, being silly and picking up my whole family and trying to carry them through the house, kids and wife. And it felt like it tore a muscle in my forearm and bicep pretty badly. Like I was in a fair bit of pain and had very little strength in that elbow. And I got to the gym the next week and I was like, okay, how do I go about training this? Do I go right back to regress to forearm rehab stuff, or do I, and the most painful was pull-ups and bicep curls. That was really, really hard. But what I actually did was I still did pull-ups. I didn't do loaded pull-ups. So I removed the weight that I was strapping to myself, and I also reduced the amount of range that I was lifting in. So I was still stimulating the movement, and my brain was still getting the stimulus of that complex movement pattern. And then I adapted the bicep curl so that I got it to a point where it was tolerable. It was still uncomfortable, but it was tolerable. And I progressed from that point forward. And last week on Thursday, after about 3 or 4 weeks of doing that, every workout I increased the range of movement in my pull-up. Every workout I was able to increase the range of movement in my bicep curl and lift a little bit more weight. And last week on Thursday was the first workout that I did that I was almost back to normal weight with basically no discomfort whatsoever. So, you know, yeah, my rehab was actually, and this is why we like to say regression over rehab, rather than, oh my God, I'm, you know, taking on this stigma and this identity of being in serious rehab. You know, the level that you regress back is going to be very individual based on your needs.
Yeah, and I really like what you were talking there with the changing the range, and I think training within your available range, you can often, with certain injuries, can really load up in just a slightly reduced range and then still get a great strength stimulus that will carry over. Best to work with a physio if you're a bit unsure about this, but often with, especially with knee injuries, like, getting squatting past 90 degrees can be aggravating for quite a few knee injuries, but then if you are training in less than that range, then you can happily really load up without any issue. So do work with someone who can give you some advice to this, and
that's
keeping goals.
It's really important that we do press on that issue, press on that point. I have the luxury, and so does Rad, and so does Richard, that 9 times out of 10 when we're training next to Phil. So if we're a little bit unsure, we've got someone else that we can bounce ideas off. And it was actually Phil that suggested, no, don't stop doing pull-ups. If you can do a pull-up in a partial range, then do that. That's your regression, rather than go right back to forearm flexion, extension, and supination and pronation for me, which probably would have been too much of a regression. I was doing that stuff, and I did do a little bit of that stuff, but the majority of my rehab came from a regressed version of a bicep curl and a regressed range of motion on my pull-ups, and so, yeah, it is important to align yourself with someone who understands training and who has the certifications, the ability to understand the injury as well, So 9 times out of 10, a personal trainer won't suffice. You'll need a physiotherapist, but you also need a physiotherapist who understands movement and exercise and is not just, going to wrap you in cotton wool. It's really important. It's a thing. It is. It absolutely is. And guys, yeah, most of you have got the ability to hook up with Phil online, and he can give you the exact same advice he gives us, unless you're in America.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it for today. Remember, if you are part of the UMS online coaching group, Friday at 9:15, we're going to be kicking off the weekly group coaching calls again. It's going to be a good one this week because we're going to be able to help you out with your testing. So get testing this week and submit your testing videos if you'd like us to critique them, and we will critique them live on the live coaching call.
And Josh, you said you wanted to do some one-on-one coaching with us. Be on that call, brother, because there's a high likelihood that you will be getting one-on-one coaching on that call.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always a small uptake of people that jump on these calls, and that is your opportunity. You don't need to pay us an extra cent. It's a part of your UMS online coaching subscription. But be on that call at 9:15 a.m. straight after this show
On Friday. Yeah, there's a
and we
very
will help
high
you out.
probability, mate, that you'll be like one of the only people live on,
Yep.
on the stream.
Yep. So get on there and get any questions that you have based on what we spoke about today and what your question is, and we'll answer it for you.
I dare say, your one-on-one coaching is booked in at 9:15 on Friday.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to our channel and make sure you click the notification bell so you know when our weekly videos are uploaded. Now, the best thing for you to do if you want to stay connected with us and get free online coaching is to join our private Facebook group. It's called the UMS Movement Mastermind, and we go live daily where we answer our members' questions. It's very interactive because you can post questions while we're live and we interact with you on the show. You can also upload videos or pictures of yourself with any movements, any stretches, strength training movements, calisthenics, weightlifting, anything that you're struggling with, and we'll critique you, give you feedback, let you know how you can get better. It's a really valuable resource. It allows a lot of communication with us and also our senior tribe members. You'll get answers very, very quickly, and it's absolutely free. So jump on Facebook, search for UMS Movement Mastermind and join now. Until next time, have a great day.